updated this. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Is the glare still there or no?
Yeah. There you go. That's good. Right there. Right there. Oh, now you got the light glare from the top. Okay, right there. Perfect. Ready? What the fuck? Scene 1, take 2. Natalie Pita. Here we go. I feel left out without my sunglasses on, though. Can I go get my sunglasses?
You can get them. Get them if you want.
Go ahead.
Okay. So who the fuck gave me a podcast? On my 50th birthday, I went to your house and started talking to you about this little endeavor, and I described it as a new company that I was going to work for called Empower Me Hub. And the marketing guy said, you should really do a podcast. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I hate being on camera. I don't like my voice. I don't like the way I look. No, not happy. So I left and just think about it. So a week later, I'm still thinking about like, what the fuck, a podcast? Nah. So fast forward, and I woke up one morning and I was like, oh my God, that's going to be the name of my podcast. What the fuck? And every, subject that I sort of want to address will be a new episode. So I hadn't told you any of this. And we're sitting in your, I think it was in the kitchen. And I start describing this to you. And you took the words right out of my mouth. And you said, oh my God, every episode has to be something that you've gone through in life. So it was sort of the,
solidification.
Yeah, like the catalyst of, okay, yeah, maybe I'm going to do this. And then I also promised myself this year in particular that I was going to get out of my comfort zone because last year was a fucking disaster and I was in survival mode the entire year. And I feel like I've sort of, been able to regulate a little bit. And I have, stuff to share. So you're my first guest. Kyra Gonzalez.
Yay! So I have to tell you, like, obviously having been your friend for many years now, like I've walked alongside and, been there through the thick and the thin and the ins and the outs. And, obviously I want everything but the best for you. And when you said the podcast and the name of the podcast, it was like, the perfect name, like what the fuck? Because everything that I have watched you go through, or really like anybody has gone through, you kind of sit back at first and you're like, what the fuck?
Yes.
But then you get into like go mode and you figure it out.
Yeah. And I said when I started talking to the marketing guy, he's like, well, we might have to like, make it F*** CK, and I'm like, no, it has to be what the fuck, because it's just, I said it so many times, right? And now I have found that I say it sometimes when things are going really, really well. So
don't say that out loud.
I know. But we've known each other quite some time. Our girls met in kindergarten. Is that what
kindergarten? Yeah.
And now they're 17. So
we met. You were pregnant.
I know.
You were at a birthday party.
When I met you, I was
pregnant. And you were pushing. You had your glasses on. You looked like nerdy Natalie. You were pushing. I don't know, one of the kids in the swing. I had a ton of kids around me too because we got a lot of kids. That's what we did. And I'm like, there's something about this girl. Something about her I like. And then we got invited to like a mommy's brunch or something.
Yes.
And you showed up with the champagne and the chicken wings. And I'm like, that's my girl. Everybody else was drinking, a fruit punch. And you and I were drinking champagne.
But we have to disclose that this was like many, many, many years ago.
All right. So tell me a little bit about what you foresee with this mastermind plan you have going on.
Mastermind.
So what is your mission and your vision for what the fuck?
I've been through some shit, and I think that I can help people. If anything, just to say, oh my God, there's somebody out there that feels the way I feel or is going through what I'm going through, and in a very authentic and casual manner.
That's why I was asked to be on this podcast, because I am your friend. And one of the things I can say
The
about
podcast is
you,
rated R, but you can't share any of my stories.
and I've watched you evolve. So, this is a new, improved Natalie, right? We all evolve. But one of the things I have to say about you in your evolution is that, having from the first day I met you, you have always been true to yourself. You are who you are, no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter if you're going to a fancy shindig and you got a fancy dress on, which you don't do very often. You'd rather be in your flip flops and in your tank top and your sunglasses now. But the point is that when you meet Natalie, that is the Natalie you're going to get at the ball field, on a podcast, at a fancy event. You are who you are. And I think that speaks volumes, because, you don't pretend to be somebody else. You don't sugarcoat anything. I think you're a pretty straight shooter, and you're a very logical thinker. With that evolution and all the things that you've had to say across your life, like, what the fuck? I've watched you really grab on and gravitate to positivity. And, whether it be, a little like stone that has a message on it that you leave in one of my daughter's bathrooms for them to see later, or, the let them sticker on the back of your car, or, a shirt that says, what the fuck, or whatever it is. I feel like you're always leaving these subtle messages of positivity. And, I read somewhere recently that, you got to surround yourself with 5 positive people. Get rid of all the negativity. But if you have 5 positive people around you, you're going to pick up on that positivity, research suggests, and you are going to become positive, or have a better outlook on the circumstances that you're going through.
Right.
The second thing about, what you're doing here is that I think all of us have really, well, talk therapy, cognitive, behavioral health, all of it has really come to the forefront, on the cusp of COVID for more people. It's becoming, the stigmatism isn't there as much as it used to be in the past. And, that being said, I think it's so important for people, when they're going through things, to know that they're not alone, to know that, you got to talk about it. You got to bring it up. You got to get it out, because that's really the only way to deal with it. We've had my 2 of my older daughters that are teenagers, college, high school age, have had, each of them, a friend try to attempt suicide. And, my husband and I were talking, 15, 16 years old, when we were younger, the only people we knew that maybe had attempted suicide were like old, like aunts and uncles or adults, or we never knew a kid, So this world needs a lot more of what you have and what the fuck has to give. That's for sure.
Thank you. It's funny because one of the snippets that I recorded yesterday or the day before had to do with mental health, and I woke up at like 3 a.m. and turned on the TV and started watching Law and Order. And I know it's a TV show, it's fake, but the lawyer, the prosecutor, the defense attorney was interrogating the person on the stand, and it went something like, isn't it true that you have depression? Isn't it true that you take antidepressants? Isn't it true that you have anxiety? And it just dawned on me, like, this probably happens all the time, not on TV. They didn't ask, like, what blood pressure medication do you take, or what type of insulin, or how much insulin. So when do we normalize the mental health, right? Because you're right. It's hitting a lot of people at a much younger age, right? And we can have a discussion about social media, or we can have a discussion about a million things that can contribute to that.
Do you want me to write down for future episodes? I'm sure you already have them.
I do. I have. But thank you, Secretary Kyra. I, I'm a firm believer, and because I was raised in a home, and I had a beautiful, childhood. I didn't have any trauma or anything like that. But it was very much, you are strong if you don't show emotion, right? If you cry, you're weak. If you're this, you're that. And as an adult, I went through a lot of shit in my life, right? Like that, like my divorce. And I was strong after my divorce, and I was so good, and I handled everything with grace. That's going to manifest somewhere else, right? So I think, what I share with my kids, and what's really important to me, is you have to feel everything, whether it's good, bad, wonderful, disgusting. You feel it, because the minute you feel it, then you can start, recovering from that. Really, right, healing from it.
Yeah.
But if I've always been the type. I put stuff aside, and then I lose my shit. And, the last 5 years come out with specific dates, because that's how I am.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, it's definitely going to be one of the podcasts. I think it's really important. We have a mutual friend whose husband committed suicide, and I just spoke to her this morning. She's going to be on one of my podcasts.
Oh, good.
I'm going to do one about death. That sounds a little morbid, but I think it's important. I have the perspective of losing my parents and losing a niece. She has a perspective of losing her husband, to suicide. There's a teacher at my kid's school that lost her son when she was 17 years old. So I think, for this podcast, I want to reach different people and just share different perspectives. Not that one way is better than the other, but when you were talking about the positivity thing, you have to remember my house when I moved in here. Every wall had something.
A saying.
Everything. Right now, look, I have a half-naked woman giving you the finger. It's I need that.
It's a fine line, because when you're in those circumstances, sometimes it's fight or flight, right? And I know one of the things that I've always done, and I don't ever remember being taught it, is mind over matter. Like, your mind is so powerful, right? And that goes back to the power of positive thinking. But yes, sometimes your mind, you've got to think, and you got to think on the fly, and get through the situation, and then maybe afterwards you live those emotions. Sometimes they don't always go hand in hand, but like you said, like, this is gonna be, basically like a toolkit, and there's gonna be a lot of tools that you're gonna put in this bag for everybody and anybody to be able to deal with whatever the fuck is going on in their lives.
I had a mantra when I got divorced, right? And my divorce was mutual, but it is still mourning a death. At least it was for me, right? And the hardest part was, I've broken up my family, so that to me was the traumatic part of my divorce. But when I saw myself going down path, I would say, find your courage, find your brave. And I had it, like, I had Post-it notes made with that on it. I had a notebook with it on it. And it was just something, I must have said that to myself 1,000 times over a year. But it would sort of calm me down and just sort of help me, okay, refocus on what's important. And what's important right now are that the kids are okay. And that sort of is how I was able to get through all that what the fuck times during that,
No, my mom shared a similar story with me. Her father, my grandfather, passed away of cancer. This was like in the early 80s. And she brought him into our home to have his last few days. And I'll never forget, like, she's a very religious person. So if that's what you believe in, she had pictures of, we're Catholic. So she had pictures of Mary, of Jesus, of Joseph, of the saints, of guardian angels. Like, there was literally pictures. Like, if you walked into my house, you would think that you were like in the Vatican. It was pictures on every wall. But later on, she told me, like, it was what got me through it. Like, when I would look at that, I felt peace. It helped me get through it. And like, just like what you said, little by little, one would come down, or a room would change, and all of a sudden she went to the furniture store and bought some nice pictures or whatever it was. So yeah, no, you have to figure out what works.
Yeah. If I'm ever in hospice before you, I want a morphine drip that I can control. And then, I'll figure out who I want pictures of up on the wall. But no, I get it. I get it, and everybody's journey and experience is different. I know people that have lost parents that they don't want to talk about it. All the pictures came down because it would be a constant reminder. So it's almost a flip side of what we're talking about, right? Which, I don't agree with it. I think that that's when you're, suppressing emotions that are going to come out later. But listen, I don't judge. You do you, I do me, right?
Exactly, exactly. But I mean, that could go to anything, whether it be financial problems or losing somebody or, going through menopause, like whatever it is, like this is like, so it can just go along with anything. All what the fuck moments,